Greetings survival horror fans, EQA Nostalgia here, and the day has finally arrived for me to review Resident Evil 7. First and foremost, I want everybody to understand I will not be spoiling the game in this review, and because of that I can't really go into too much detail, but I will be giving you an idea on whether or not this is going to be worth a buy. Now, for those of you out there who have already played the game, you don't care about spoilers, I do have a review coming for you guys. It's going to be in-depth, so you're going to want to check that out. I'm going to be doing that in a couple of days. It's going to be like 20-30 minutes long. I'm going to be covering all of the things that I think are happening, all of the things that they kind of left us hanging with, and obviously all of the spoilers, so that is coming up. I am going to attempt to keep this as short as possible. This is my third attempt, by the way. The first time it was like 20 minutes long. Guys, it's really hard for me to talk about Resident Evil without going on and on about all of the different details because, well, I love Resident Evil and I absolutely love this game. I'm going to put that out there right away. I love this game. If you came here for somebody to rant and rave about how Resident Evil is dead and Capcom sucks, I'm sorry, you're going to have to go elsewhere because I thoroughly enjoyed my experience. So as is tradition on the channel, we're going to be talking about the graphics first because after all, that's the first thing you see when you enter the game. I think that the graphics are beautiful. There are some points where you'll look around and you'll just say, gee, this looks kind of flat. And that mostly happens outside. Some of the environments don't look that great. Some of the character models can look a little rubbery. Marguerite in particular, her face can look like she's kind of wearing a mask. But all in all, the game looks beautiful. If you're looking at it as a whole, you're going to sit there and say, wow, this looks really nice. The lighting and everything come together just to make a very atmospheric game. And in terms of atmosphere, folks, this is by far, in my honest opinion, the most atmospheric Resident Evil you're going to find. And one of the reasons for this is that the audio is absolutely fantastic in this game, guys. And every little thing, every breath, every little creak that you hear is going to have you on edge, at least for the first half of the game. By the time you get to the midway point of the game, things that go thump and bump in another room aren't really going to have you on edge as much because it's okay, how many times can you play this trick on me before I get it? It's just something brushing against a house, a tree branch or something. But at first, every little squeak is going to have you turning around and go, what the fuck was that? You're going to be looking all over the place, just paranoid about every little sound. And they really use it effectively. In terms of music, things are done very differently in Resident Evil 7. I don't believe that 6 did this. To be honest with you guys, I probably didn't pay attention as well as I should have for obvious reasons, but the music is very dynamic. It comes in and out with the enemies and the tension. This is something that started to happen something like 10 years ago. I thought it was awesome back then, and I still think it's awesome now, and I think it suits Resident Evil just fine. There is a moment when you first see Jack in an instance where you really don't want to be seeing him. The music picks up. You start to get that piano going and things start to get a little bit more tense, and then he spots you and it picks up even more. So very dynamic, in and out. Certain enemies throughout the game, if they're around, you'll start to feel that tension. The closer they get, the more it'll ramp up. And again, once they spot you, that's when it really starts to pick up. But in terms of just traditional Resident Evil, don't expect to step into a main hallway and get like an iconic Resident Evil kind of vibe going on. They don't have any of that really happening. The only place where that does happen is the save room. You've got that save theme that leaked some time ago, and which, by the way, I absolutely love. All of the Resident Evil save room themes. I don't think they've ever made one that I didn't love. I love Resident Evil music, period, but it is disappointing to think that in 10 years I won't really be looking back at the main hall theme or the 2F theme, you know, the basement theme. You're not really going to get that from this game. Yes, they do play music in spots, but in my first playthrough I didn't really pick up on it that much. Maybe there's more music there than what I noticed. There might be a decent soundtrack there. I haven't searched for anything, but it really seemed like they were using that atmospheric music that comes in and out more than they were using those really traditional tracks that stand out and something that you remember years from now. And obviously we have the Aunt Rhody theme, which I still think is fantastic. The game has that when you first load it up, it'll play that bit, and it just really gets you into the game. You're like, all right, I'm ready to play now. I highly recommend you sit and watch the first little beat. It's nothing you haven't seen before, but trust me, it'll get you hyped and ready to play the game. So sound, absolutely fantastic, guys. Now, in terms of performance on PC, I can't speak for consoles. PC, it seems really solid, but there is a problem with, people are saying it's Windows 10, some people are saying it's AMD processors, some people are saying it's this and that. One thing seems to be certain is that there's a compatibility issue here, and it doesn't matter how expensive your PC is. I keep seeing these huge flame wars going back and forth on the forums on Steam where people are saying, oh, your rig is a pile of dog shit. There are people having this problem with $4,000 PCs. There are people having this problem like me with $1,100 PCs, okay? It's just a compatibility issue. I am not that tech savvy, I'm not going to pretend to be, but from what I have seen from all the people that seem to really know what they're talking about, this is something that has happened in other games. It's some sort of a memory problem. Your memory just kind of craps out after a certain point. Now for me, when it started to do it is when I got just after the dinner scene. It started to just stutter like crazy, and all I had to do was turn things down a bit. It really didn't affect the game that much. The shadows didn't look as good, but it still looked okay. So if you're worried about this game not being able to run, take a look at your hardware. If your hardware is able to run modern games on medium settings, you're going to be able to run this game. You might have to turn some things down because of that compatibility issue, but hopefully Capcom gets a patch out there. In terms of controls, everything with a mouse and keyboard feels great. The controller feels good, but obviously the aiming is not going to be as good. This is, after all, it's got a first-person shooter element to it. You can't really call it a first-person shooter, though. It's not an action game, but you do have that. You are shooting things in first person, but you're not going to go around like Rambo with stockpiles of ammo just blasting everything. Enemies are a challenge, and there's a lot of times where you're going to have to run away from them. But in terms of controls, like I said, everything functions great, guys. Now, you're going to notice when you first start playing the game, it's a little rough because they throw things at you very quickly. The first hour of this game, let me just tell it to you like this. If you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil it, but you're going to want to go sit down, you're going to want to smoke a cigarette, and you're going to want to think for a few minutes because it really grabs a hold of you and just shakes you to the very core. At least it did me personally. I've never really experienced anything like that in a game until I played this game. It was like, whoa, was that even supposed to happen? Why did that happen? Should I restart? Oh my God. Holy shit. But the game doesn't really give you too much time to think about those things at first because they just throw things at you. But after that, pacing-wise, the pacing is fantastic. They'll have these segments where you feel like you're underpowered, and then all of a sudden you feel like, hey, I'm feeling pretty comfortable here. Oh, boss battle, obviously. That's why I've got all this stuff. All right, struggling a little bit here. We need to get more supplies, and then it'll slow down just long enough to get you to where you need to be so that you're ready for the next encounter. Sometimes you're going to be running away, though, especially if you're playing it on the Madhouse difficulty, you're going to be running away. I should mention, on normal difficulty, you can save anytime you want. There are frequent auto saves and stuff like that. There's checkpoints all over the place. If you play it on Madhouse, it's just like traditional Resident Evil. There are some checkpoints, but they're fewer and farther between, so that's not classic Resident Evil, obviously. But you need tapes. You need to find tapes, and they're limited. So it's like ink ribbons. So I love the fact that they did that. Now, in terms of length, you're going to get about 10 hours from your first playthrough. I know that seems really short to a lot of people, especially if you're not used to survival horror, but trust me, this is a standard for the genre. There's a reason why they don't make these long, because they're high-octane games and they're kind of stressful. It's something that, me personally, I've always been okay with it. And not only that, they're games that you want to go through at least one more time. This is going to be a game where you go through it the second time and you're going to say, oh shit, now I understand why this is there or why that's like that. So you're going to want to go through and play it again. 10 hours doesn't sound like too much, and really it's not a very long game. But like I said, with survival horror, it's pretty standard. And I feel like, really, if it would have been any longer, it would have just kind of felt exhausting, and it would have been like, all right, can we maybe wrap this up? Maybe that's just me. Some of you guys might think I'm out of my mind. You wanted to play this game for like 40 hours and go all over the place and just keep playing. For me, I felt very satisfied with the length. So in the interest of keeping this short, I'm going to offer you guys my closing thoughts. I want to remind you once again, I will be having an in-depth review, and I hope to see you there. Hopefully you'll play through the game, come back and check out that review. But just to wrap things up, Resident Evil is back, guys. It is. I called this months ago. I know I sound arrogant right now. I really don't care. I made that In Defense of Resident Evil video. I told people, give it a chance. It looks like it's got those elements there. I'm seeing the elements in the teaser. You're having to backtrack and collect things. You're having to kind of solve a puzzle. They were always alluding to that. but they kept the combat away from us, and I think that scared a lot of people, and it started to scare me a little bit too. When we got that Lantern trailer, it kind of started to look like we were going to be playing an Outlast clone. That is certainly not what we got. Resident Evil is 100% back. You're doing backtracking, you're having to manage your inventory, you're dealing with isolation and all of these things from classic Resident Evil. You're scared to go around a corner, you're scared to go down the stairs. It's traditional Resident Evil. You open the door, you're wondering what the hell is there. How am I going to get around this enemy? What should I take with me? There's traps, puzzles, everything is here, guys. It's in a first-person format. One thing that I am noticing, even the people that seem to absolutely hate first person are saying, wow, after trying this, it does feel like Resident Evil, but I still wish it was fixed camera. I still wish it was this. I still wish it was that. But they at least recognize that the formula of Resident Evil is here. It is here in spades, and it is wonderful. It's really hard to describe the feeling when something that you've loved for years, it goes astray. And then it comes back to you like a decade later. You know in your mind that this is it. If they don't pull it back now, they're never going to, and I just need to kind of move on because this isn't for me anymore. After Resident Evil 6, I was honestly depressed for the series. It bummed me out. I played Revelations 2. That didn't do it for me either. I know a lot of people like these games, and if you do, that's fine, but it didn't do it for me, man. It just didn't. At the end of Resident Evil 7, I felt completely satisfied. I wanted to see where the story was going to go in the sequel. I know there's going to be a sequel, and I'm really happy to see that we're getting a lot of positive reviews. People really seem to love this game. And the only thing that really remains for me to say to you guys is welcome back to the world of survival horror. I thank you all for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in my next video.